Now we are discussing about some practical resistors, how different types of resistors are available we are discussing. A resistor was invented in 1959 by Otis Frank Boykin. The resistor we are observing, he is the reason for it. Even though the principle of resistance is given by Ohm. Ohm has defined the resistance theoretically, but practically the Boykin, he has started utilizing, he invented the resistance. First we are discussing about a carbon composition resistor. Carbon composition means we use some amount of carbon in a different mixture form. That's why it is called as carbon composition resistors. Where we use these carbon composition resistors, already you can observe the carbon composition resistors in your textbook. In images also you can observe some carbon composition resistors we have given there. Carbon composition resistors are especially used in the surge protection. What is the surge? Whenever the voltage that is coming to us, it is far beyond than the normal voltage we are expecting, then that instantaneous voltage is called as surge. When suddenly some thunderstorm comes, you may observe some surge current. At that moment, for the surge protection of any device, we use this carbon composition resistor. And when the overcurrent is observed, to limit the current also, we use the carbon composition resistor. And high voltages, sometimes in railway stations you can go and observe 25,000 volts they use. So 25,000 volts means very high voltage. When we are using very high voltages, to limit the current in the high voltage range, we generally prefer to use the carbon composition resistors. How we manufacture the carbon composition resistors? We use the carbon particles and the graphite, it is another form of carbon. And ceramic dust we use, insulator. So we use these three materials, and to bind these three materials we use some clay like gum material. Then the carbon composition resistor is formed. But this is done in a high pressure and high temperature environment. In that temperature, everything is molded into a molten form. Then we fix a particular shape and we take two leads from that resistor. Our carbon composition resistor is ready. The disadvantage is it is very costly. And the resistance value is also not at all stable. It is not stable, less stable. Some resistance we may expect at the real times, it may show some other resistance. Okay? So carbon composition resistors, they use for the surge protection. Whenever high currents are observed, at that time to limit, we can use the carbon composition resistors. Second one, wire wound resistors. As the name mentioned, if we take an insulator and if we wind a wire across that insulator, that is a wire wound resistor. Sir, which wire we wind, sir? We use either nichrome or manganese. Sir, what is the insulator we use for winding? Either you can use the fiber or ceramic. In the plastic you use when the temperature requirement is low and when high currents are not observed, at that time you can use even a thick plastic, not a thin plastic. So these materials we use, and on these materials we wind a wire. Then our wire wound resistor is ready. The advantage with the wire wound resistor is it is stable. If a wire wound resistor is 100 ohms, then in the real time application if we operate, it gives only 100 ohms resistance. Very high stable. High stability is observed. But the disadvantage with the wire wound resistor, similarly compared to normal resistors, wire wound resistor is also costly and it occupies more space. But it has a very good capability to handle the high amount of powers. High current ratings are possible. And another disadvantage is only if less amount of resistance we can manufacture by using the wire wound resistors. High resistance value, I want 1 mega ohm wire wound resistor, you will never find in the market. So the resistance for lesser resistance values only we can manufacture the wire wound resistors.